My boss. If you become the manager, everyone would quit. The office went silent at James's loud proclamation. Then, with a smug look on his face, James tossed his resignation letter onto my desk. Taking his cue, the employees behind him also threw their resignation letters, all 20 of them. But the next moment, they were all wide-eyed and shocked by my words. "But this is great. You saved me." "What?" James stood there, mouth agape, looking bewildered. I calmly looked around at their faces and smiled gently. There are moments in life when you must discern what truly matters. Sometimes these moments are harsh or lead you down the wrong path, but ultimately, you must make your own choices. My name is Joseph Jones. I'm a 36-year-old employee working at a small company in New York City. So far, my life has been pretty average. I went to high school and college like everyone else and had a typical job hunt. Among the companies that offered me a job, I chose the safest one, which is where I work now. I work in sales, and I have no particular complaints. I just do my best wherever the company assigns me. Living my life without going against the flow, I now face a perplexing choice for the first time. The catalyst for this dilemma is my colleague, James Miller, who is 6 years younger than me. James, who just turned 30, proudly graduated from a famous university in New York City. He's at the peak of his career, having learned the ropes of the job. As a mid-level employee, he's at an age where he's expected to lead younger colleagues. The company has had high expectations for his growth and has given him significant responsibilities. But perhaps this inflated his pride more than necessary. Before we knew it, James became a troublesome employee who would always have something to say to the company. I think someone with my skills should get a higher salary. Despite that, I hardly get any raises and don't have enough vacation time. I'm really treated poorly. He would bring these complaints to me, his direct supervisor, which annoyed me to no end. James probably thought he was doing his best at work, but he often messed up despite his efforts. Though he had achievements, he frequently negated them with blunders. He considered himself an elite, but he caused trouble about once every 3 attempts. Even though he should have known the procedures, he would often make his own adjustments, which would trouble our clients. He would include terms in the contracts that we hadn't discussed in prior meetings, insisting, "This is better. You should definitely try it." Each time, it was my job as his supervisor to handle the complaints that followed. "James, I understand your enthusiasm and that you thought you were acting in the client's best interest. But it's not okay to change things without consulting them first." "Well, I can't help it if I get inspired. Anyway, I guess someone as ordinary as you, Joseph, wouldn't understand an elite like me." No matter how much I advised him, James just took it as jealousy of his elite status and laughed it off, not taking me seriously. If he had been more straightforward, I might have been able to correct his misguided actions, but that was too much to hope for. His pride from graduating from a famous university grew too large, and he couldn't build good relationships with other employees. He became the leader of a group that constantly complained and griped about the company. On the other hand, he looked down on employees he deemed less educated, even if they were senior to him. Naturally, James and his group were disliked by other employees, but they didn't quit the company. Our company was always short-staffed and couldn't afford to lose even the troublesome employees. Despite his cocky attitude, James was only 30, and there was still hope for his future growth. As his supervisor, I continued to patiently guide him. Over time, as the younger employees gained skills, they started to surpass James in sales numbers. This prompted James to start making snide remarks to the junior employees. "I get all the tough cases. It's so unfair that the younger guys get the easy jobs." He began to loudly voice these complaints, further souring the workplace atmosphere. Other employees started voicing concerns that, despite the staff shortage, it was becoming increasingly difficult to work with James around. As a manager at the time, I had to address complaints from my subordinates, so I was constantly on edge. Whenever trouble arose, I arranged meetings with James. However, James never seemed to think he was in the wrong. Even when I sternly admonished him, he nonchalantly replied, "If you dislike me that much, I can leave any time. A friend from college is starting a new company and wants me to co-manage." He was practically threatening me. If he wanted to quit, I wasn't going to stop him. But no matter how many times I cautioned him, James just laughed it off. I could leave any time, but without me, this company wouldn't function. He insisted, as if expecting me to beg him to stay. Admittedly, we couldn't afford to lose him easily. Our company was understaffed and struggling to hire new employees. Even someone like James was better than no one. We hired anyone who applied, but training them took time and further strained our operations, creating a vicious cycle. James understood this situation well, which is why he knew I couldn't be too harsh with him. The company was perplexed about how to handle James, and then the incident happened. A younger employee secured a new client. Initially unassuming, this employee was the opposite of James, humble and eager to learn from his seniors. His serious demeanor endeared him to clients, leading to rapid growth since joining the company. And finally, he was named the top salesman of the month. We all celebrated our junior's achievement, and everyone praised him. But there was one person who wasn't pleased: James. He just got work from a client who's always favored him. If I were in his position, I would have tripled the profit. James grumbled to himself. That would have been fine, but he started nitpicking the junior employee under the pretense of giving him guidance. Despite being younger, the junior often knew more about the job due to his hands-on experience. James got really upset. Who does he think he is, acting all high and mighty? Does he think he can get away with anything just because he gets results? The junior employee shrank under James's angry outbursts. I hurried to intervene, but the junior eventually quit the job. The general feeling in the office was that it would have been better if James, who was all talk and no results, had quit instead. However, James acted like he was the victim, saying, "I was trying to help, but if he quits without saying anything, it looks like I chased him out. If you treat me like this, I'll really leave. Is that okay?" He pressed me, but still didn't change his attitude. As the promising junior employees left, I finally realized the gravity of the situation. If we keep James in the company, surely other capable employees will leave. It's clear that it would be better for the company if James left. But firing an employee without a substantial reason is illegal. I began hoping that James would resign on his own. Then one day, a decisive event occurred. It was announced that I would be promoted to manager following a personnel change. As I mentioned before, our company is significantly understaffed, which is why I, still in my 30s, could become a manager. However, this news seemed to ignite James's fighting spirit. If Joseph can become a manager, I should be promoted to section chief immediately. He grumbled within his group. The next day, fearing trouble, James and his 20 followers came to see me. "What's all this commotion about? Let me be blunt, either promote us or raise our salaries immediately." At James's loud demand, the office fell silent. With a smug look, James surveyed the quiet room and arrogantly tossed his resignation letter onto my desk. "If you become the manager, we'll all quit. If you don't want that, accept our demands now." At those words, the other employees also started throwing their resignation letters. They must think the company would be in trouble without them. I never imagined James and his group could be so foolish. Confused, I gathered the 20 resignation letters. As I carefully picked them up, James sneered and said, "You'd be in trouble if we quit, right? If you're smart enough to be promoted to manager, you should know what to do." "That's right. It would be difficult to manage without your work. It would also reflect poorly on my ability to supervise my team." James and his group exchanged smug smiles, thinking they had won. But in the next moment, they were wide-eyed in shock at my words. "But this is great. You saved me." "What?" James stood there, dumbfounded, his mouth agape. I calmly looked at their faces and smiled gently. I'm glad to hear your true feelings. It's disappointing for me, but I must respect your decision. What? Wait a minute. What are you talking about? James hadn't expected me to actually accept the resignation letters. His face turned pale as he approached me. Seeing their leader's reaction, the others became uneasy. They exchanged anxious whispers, their faces clouded with worry. Seeing this, I smiled, realizing my suspicions were correct. James was the only one openly expressing discontent. I had suspected the others were just following his lead without much conviction. Everyone at the company knew we were short-staffed and couldn't easily dismiss employees. They probably thought that if James's demands were met, they'd get promotions and raises without much effort. I believed that getting what you want without effort was unrealistic. This was something understood by any hard-working employee, even those without prestigious degrees. But James and his group had never faced significant setbacks. They had gone from prestigious schools to our company, living in a world where their whims were always indulged. They must have joined James's cause without much thought. Now, faced with the reality of their resignation letters being accepted, they were in a state of panic, contrary to James's expectations. From behind a pale-faced James, I could hear whispers of confusion from the employees. Are we really going to resign? This is just a wage negotiation, right? This is common practice overseas, right? Hearing their confused murmurs, I let out a sigh mixed with exasperation and bewilderment. Indeed, there had been instances of negotiating salaries and conditions with the company, but those were always rational discussions. Employees would present proper research and valid reasons to negotiate for a raise. But a negotiation tactic like theirs, demanding better conditions under threat of resignation, was unprecedented. I addressed the anxious employees and James, who stood defiantly before them, giving them one last chance to reconsider. If you want to retract your resignations, now is the time. We've never had employees negotiate this way. That's because we've never had employees as capable as us. James retorted boldly, despite his pale complexion. However, behind him, his followers were already showing signs of wanting to back out, shuffling their feet and avoiding eye contact. It was clear they weren't unified. Is this really what you want? I asked. Think about your own intentions. My words clearly unsettled the other employees, but James glared at me with intense eyes. After a moment of staring each other down, I sighed lightly, then stood up with a smile. If you're that determined, then so be it. I'll submit your resignation letters as they are. Thank you for your service. Saying that, I immediately started walking towards the CEO's office. From behind, I could hear the sounds of a scuffle between the employees trying to follow me and James holding them back. I didn't expect things to go this well. Suppressing the urge to laugh, I quickly headed to the CEO's office. It's quite challenging to fire employees for company reasons. It's difficult to present valid reasons for dismissal, and mishandling it could lead to strained relations and potential lawsuits. Additionally, firing employees for company reasons can be costly. It increases severance pay and can cut off various subsidies. The best way to avoid these issues was to have James resign voluntarily. Despite repeatedly saying, "You'd be in trouble if I quit," James had never actually intended to leave. Therefore, this situation with the 20 collective resignations was the outcome I had been waiting for. I briefly explained the situation to the CEO. The CEO, holding 20 resignation letters, was sweating profusely. If 20 people resign at once, the company won't be able to function. Please wait, in my opinion, after this. The CEO was pale, but as he listened to my explanation, he gradually regained his color. In the end, he saw me off with a smile. Eventually, James resigned as he had said he would. He continued to complain about me and the company until the very end. I'll find a new job right away, so it's no problem for me. But the company will struggle without us, right? That's true. Losing all 20 of you would be a significant blow. When I responded honestly, James smirked and continued. That's what I thought. But we can't compromise on our conditions. Conditions? James confidently declared to my puzzled expression. If you want us back, you must either promote us or raise our salaries. Actually, since we're coming back after resigning, you should do both. Are you sure about this, leaving the company and not regretting it? Despite all the trouble he'd caused, I gave him one last chance out of kindness, but James scoffed at my concern. I sympathize that you're losing such a valuable employee like me, but it's your fault for making us angry. James puffed out his chest proudly and made his declaration to me. You can call us back once you understand our value. Just remember to do it quickly before another company snaps us up. With a half smile, James said this and walked out of the office. As I watched his confident departure, I let out a sigh mixed with exasperation. A week later, I called James back to the office. When he arrived, he was dressed in a sharp suit and couldn't hide his excitement as he asked me, "You finally called. You said you wanted to talk. What's this about?" "Oh, I just wanted you to come pick up your belongings that you left here." James glanced at the box of his belongings, waiting for something more. "What's wrong? Please take your things home." "Is that all you called me for?" "Yes, that's all. Take care on your way back." "No, wait, what's going on?" Looking dissatisfied, he rummaged through his things, clearly expecting something else. If a former employee's belongings are left behind, it's a hassle to deal with, so I wanted you to take them. "That's not what I meant. Is this really all you wanted to talk about? I thought you were going to discuss my rehire." Seeing James approach me in shock, I finally realized he had misunderstood. He must have thought the company was struggling without him. He believed I called him back to beg him to return to his former position. Seeing him dressed in a sharp suit, ready to rejoin the company, was almost admirable. I told James firmly, "No, we're not hiring right now. We have no intention of rehiring you." "Are you serious? If you don't stop me now, I'll really join another company. If I say the word, everyone will follow me to another company." Watching James turn red and complain, it was clear he wasn't listening. As his former supervisor, it was my duty to share a harsh truth with him. The other 19 people didn't resign. "What?" James froze, eyes wide open. "No way, they submitted their resignation letters with me. Afterward, they all withdrew their resignations. You were the only one who actually left." Hearing my words, James's face turned red with anger. "They betrayed me." "Not exactly. It seems they never really intended to resign. Actually, a week ago, after I submitted the 20 resignation letters to the CEO, the 19 employees, excluding James, came after me. With cold sweat on their foreheads, they greeted and asked for their resignation letters back. "We're truly sorry for causing such a fuss. We were just swept along by James and never intended to leave the company." Seeing their sincere apologies, I returned to the CEO's office with the 19 employees in tow and got the resignation letters back. As I explained this, James stomped his feet in frustration. "They really did that to me, but the company will struggle without the best employee, right?" "No, the rest of the team has been covering for your absence, and actually, we've become more efficient. The situation has brought us closer together. In fact, the workplace has become brighter without James's constant complaints and lack of results." Everyone was tired of James's incessant whining. Now, the office is a friendly place where employees help each other out, even if mistakes happen. When the work environment improves, employee efficiency goes up, and operations run more smoothly. In reality, sales have even increased. Moreover, these positive changes have affected me personally. I was able to redirect all the time I had spent dealing with James's issues back to my actual work. Focusing on my sales job, I secured the largest deal of the year, putting the whole company in a celebratory mood. Additionally, the new employees I had been training finally became independent. They are now valuable assets working for the company. Our continuous recruitment efforts paid off. and promising new talent joined us. So really, there's no need to worry about the company. You can pursue your own path, James. What so? There's no place for me to return to. I'm telling you, I'm willing to come back. James, almost in tears, tried to persuade me. But by now, there was no place for him in the company. If you're that talented, you'll find a job anywhere. You'll soon find a better place. Well, but after all this time working here, I thought I could still be valuable as a veteran employee. Clutching the box with his belongings tightly, James seemed to reach his limit when I didn't respond. He collapsed to the floor and began shouting out his plan. I never actually intended to quit. I just wanted better conditions. If that's true, then you definitely went about negotiating with the company the wrong way. Waving resignation letters around and trying to force your demands isn't sincere. At my point, James finally broke down in tears. Clutching the hem of my suit, he began making ridiculous excuses. Joseph, you were my boss. You should have stopped me more. It's your fault for not keeping a dedicated employee like me. Shifting the blame so perfectly, James clearly underestimated both the company and me. But no matter what he said, I had no intention of holding him back. Don't worry, you're properly resigned now. James finally seemed to understand that there was no chance of being rehired here. Looking up at me desperately, I gave him one last push. Remember, you mentioned a friend inviting you to start a new company together. For a moment, he looked confused. Then, as if realizing something, he trembled and stood up unsteadily. Oh yes, right, I do have a friend. The plans for starting the company are really moving forward now. James muttered, his eyes unfocused, finally glancing at me with a twisted smile. Good timing for me to leave. I'm heading to my friend's company, but you're really okay with this? From his demeanor, it was clear James's story about his friend's company was a lie. Still, I didn't press him and said, do your best at the new company. As I saw him out of the office, he's a grown man. He should be responsible for his own words. James staggered down the hallway and left the company. Not a single member of the group that had gathered around him showed their face. This fact alone spoke volumes about James's lack of respect among his peers. In the end, no one ever heard about James starting a company with his friend. Instead, reports came in about him frequenting the employment office, trying to find a new job. He went to various job interviews, but all of them turned him down. Apparently, he kept insisting he was an immediate asset because of his prestigious degree and demanded an executive-level position. Rejected repeatedly, he finally realized his attitude was the problem and accepted a more typical position, only to resign after 6 months following another failed negotiation tactic involving his resignation letter. Now, he's reportedly in a disheveled state, blowing his earnings from temp jobs on gambling. On the other hand, after James left, the company continued to thrive. The deal I secured led to even bigger opportunities, resulting in a substantial contract that is expected to keep the company prosperous for the next decade. Thanks to these achievements, I am soon to be promoted to head of the department. But what makes me happiest is that the workplace atmosphere has returned to being bright and cooperative. Instead of criticizing each other, we now work together to achieve better results. With this spirit, we employees work cheerfully every day. One particularly surprising event was the return of a young employee who had left because of James. It seems he was informed by former colleagues that James was no longer here. When he contacted me, asking sincerely to be rehired, tears of joy welled up in my eyes. Now, he has become a seasoned veteran, leading the company. I'm truly glad we didn't lose such a talented employee. No matter how much we need staff, it's crucial to carefully choose our colleagues. Because work isn't something you do alone. It's built through mutual support with your team. Moving forward, I will continue to ensure a conducive work environment by discerning what truly matters, all to make decisions without regrets. With this determination, I stepped into the office today,